All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Nurture Oklahoma live stream series where we get to bring awareness to and highlight all the amazing health and birth professionals in our local community. Today I have on Jen Miller, who is, oh wait, over here. I always forget, like over here. Today I have on Jen Miller. She is a hypnobirthing instructor and a doula, and she also has a bunch of other really cool services that she does for our community that I'm excited to hear more about. Jen, do you want to go ahead and kind of introduce yourself for anybody who might not already be familiar with you?
Yeah. As Jenny said, I'm Jen Miller. I have lived in Oklahoma now for 6 years, but I'm originally from Florida. And I have been a hypnobirthing educator and a birth doula for the past almost decade. It'll be 10 years in February. So I'm really excited. I really enjoy serving families and, living on pregnant people and helping them to feel educated and empowered.
Yeah, I love your shirt. That's so great. And happy almost anniversary. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I can't wait to get up to those numbers, those double-digit numbers.
It's a little bit surreal.
Right? I mean, even now as a doula, I'm always like, is this real? Am I really doing the thing? Do you have days like that where you're like, I'm really doing the thing?
Some days. And I'm still working on doing the thing even better. But
Yeah, that's something that's really cool about our, birth work in general is there's always so much room to grow and expand, and there's always something new to learn, for sure.
Absolutely, so much.
Yes. Can you tell us something interesting about yourself that people might not know about you?
Here's an oldie. I actually used to belly dance.
Really?
I was an avid belly dancer for several years. I'm extremely out of practice at this point. But I loved it. I took classes, the whole shebang, and then I had kids and kind of stopped, and now they're preteens.
That's so cool. I love that. I've taken belly dancing classes too. They're just so much fun.
What I didn't know when I first fell in love with belly dance was that it actually is a way of birth preparation and honoring the feminine form. Yeah, it's not supposed to be sexy or to entice men. It was specifically for women by women.
That's amazing. Ooh, that's really cool. I'm gonna have to look more into that. It's already like, it's so cool when I see belly dancers do certain movements, like when they're very like tech. Oh my gosh, it's to have that amount of control over your body. It's so cool though. I mean, I'm sure you've seen some of the different dancers that are out there. It's just really cool to see like how much control you have over your body. And now that you say that, that makes sense. You do have like to be in really in touch with your body, similar to you would be in a birth. So
yeah, absolutely.
So how did you become part of the birth community? What's your origin story?
So basically, when I was pregnant, I didn't know what I didn't know. And I'm a natural born educator. In fact, I was a middle school teacher for 11 years.
Okay.
My heart is for education and support. It always has been. My favorite thing to do when we were kids was play school or, help people learn things. And my first pregnancy, I didn't know very much. I was planning an out-of-hospital birth at a local birth center in Florida. Shout out to Heart Birth Center. They're amazing. And they required taking a class, and none of the classes really fit my schedule. I took a one-day kind of crash course thing and thought I knew all the things. I went on to my birthing day and realized that I didn't know all the things. I didn't know anything. I was not prepared, but at least the first time kind of ignorance is bliss, and they were great at working with me and helping me through it. And I had an amazing, wonderful water birth for my firstborn. But for my second, I was like, okay, so now we're going to actually do the class. We're going to actually educate ourselves because that was kind of dumb. And we could do better. So the second time I went ahead and took hypnobirthing, and even though I had already had a child and went through the process and understood pregnancy and things like that, my mind was blown at how much I didn't know, and how much I learned about my body, how much I learned about birth, and I fell in love. And when my son, just before he turned 1 year old, I went ahead and took my hypnobirthing training because I was like, people need to know this. And I took my doula training as well because I was like, these things really go hand in hand. The education and the support. And so I did them both within like a month of each other, all while still nursing a baby and teaching full time and all those other things. So it's really just a love story, really, with education and figuring out what it was that I was really passionate about, and that was it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. That's so cool. You have a background in education. It makes sense that you would pull that love of education, together with wanting to empower people during their births. And I think it's pretty common too to have your first baby and to read what to expect when you're expecting, and take a hospital course and be like, I've got this, and then get in there and have that nothing Jon Snow type feeling.
Yeah.
I don't know what this is. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Am I facing? What is it facing? So I thought to dilate, but yeah, and that second birth can be such a momentous comeback. Oh hey, and that's why when people hire doulas. They're like, I need a guide person through this.
Oh yeah, I wish that I had hired a doula for my first, and I was on the fence about it, and then we just didn't have the funds, and I didn't want to ask someone to receive less than their worth, and so I really struggled with it. There was a great midwifery student who was there assisting the day that my daughter was born, and so that and my midwife, they really, really got me through. But honest to God, I could have used another set of hands.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, am I ever so thankful when I go to a home birth. They're one of my favorite. I love all birth, obviously, but when you have a midwife or a second midwife and the midwife's assistants to be able to tap in and be like, can you help me with hip squeezes? Because all my home births have been long. My muscles are oh, when I'm doing hip squeezes, I need to start lifting. What is your first experience, first memorable experience in your birth works? And that's gonna stay with you for the rest of forever.
So honest to goodness, the very, very first birth I attended, she was a friend from my church. I'd known her for years. It was her third baby. So she's like, I know how it's done. It's fine. I'll be your guinea pig. So she took my hypnobirthing class. I was her doula, and class went great. And her birthing day came. She had some special circumstances, and they recommended an induction, and to me, I'm like, oh, I don't even know what an induction looks like. I had 2 labors that started on their own. I had never attended another birth. I was like, okay, I'm really glad she trusts me. She did decide to get the epidural, and what was so cool is as she was starting to feel that baby was moving down into her pelvis, it was getting close to time for her to have the baby, she called the anesthesiologist in and asked him to cut her epidural in half. Okay. Which I didn't even know that was even a thing. And I haven't seen a lot of people do it even since then. But he did. He honored that request she advocated for. And she said she could feel that baby moving all through her, down through her pelvis and everything, which she had not had in her previous 2 births because she had very heavy epidurals where she couldn't even move. And as she was pushing, her doctor and the nurse in there were counting her down and doing the 10, 9, hold your breath, that kind of stuff. But they noticed that my friend wasn't following them. And then the nurse steps back for a second and she looks at her and she goes, "But does it feel better when you do it that way?" And my friend just nodded her head and kept breathing her baby down on her own, as I was just gently giving her some affirmations, reminding her of her breathing. And literally, the doctor and the nurse didn't say a single word until the baby was born. So, because they saw that what she was doing, what I was doing was working so well. And, this mother was like, "Yeah, I'm not doing it this way." And it was beautiful. It was amazing. And it definitely left a huge impression. And that was the moment when I was like, okay, I'm right where I need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so I still think back on that birth very, very fondly. And I mean, he'll be turning, he just turned 9. So.
Oh, that's so sweet. You're almost at your 10 years. So,
yeah.
Wow, what a beautiful birth. Inductions are a whole thing. I think I have to echo you in that. And my first couple births were, I don't know, I had kind of crazy first births as a doula, but the induction was, a whole different experience. You kind of learned about them in your training. I mean, obviously you learn about them in your training, but like nothing really prepares you for each individual birth that you encounter as a doula. Do you feel the same? Like everything's kind of just unique in its own way?
Oh yeah, every single birth is different. I mean, I've been to really, really long births. I've been to super duper fast births, and literally everything in between. And no two inductions look the same, and no two spontaneous births look the same. And heck, even the cesareans I've attended, they look completely different too. So
yeah, they're all just so unique. I mean, I think it's really cool that we get to see the same like body system happening, so we kind of have that like touchdown, like, oh hey, we know when someone's in transition, we know when someone's had active labor, we know when like, oh hey, they're feeling a little pushy. But it's really cool as a doula that you know those things, but each person kind of like experiences them differently, and you had that moment where you're like, I am where I need to be, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And it has to be such like a heart filling experience. You're like, oh, yes, I found my place. So hypnobirthing is a core part of your practice. What about hypnobirthing do you feel, makes it so crucial and so special that you would, devote so much of your practice to it?
So what I love about hypnobirthing, number one, is its simplicity. I feel like it's a very easy program. It's been around for over 30 years. I feel like the evidence backs it up. But there's not a ton of things that you have to necessarily remember. There's 3 breathing techniques, and then like my students, they get like a spiral bound notebook that has like all of their reminders, references, things along those lines. And to me, it was very intuitive to, trust your body, to work with your body, and to find ways to support your body with your breath, with positions, and all of the preparing in advance. Working on optimal positioning of baby before you get into labor. Like I didn't know about that before I had my firstborn. I didn't even know that it mattered. I knew that you shouldn't be butt down, but that's about all I knew.
Yeah, that's true.
Looking back, it's almost comical how much I didn't know. So I think it's a beautiful program. I see, so many calmer births, regardless of the outcome. And I really love that hypnobirthing, whereas yes, obviously it does seem to be more for those families who want to forego interventions or forego medications, but it still supports them if they choose those things or if they need those things for medical reasons. So I really like that it puts a lot of the emphasis on that mindset and, that mental and emotional piece to really prepare families, and not just the person who's birthing, but also their partner, for that birth, for the early postpartum time period, and they come out feeling better about their births, even if it didn't go as planned, because they had the mental scaffolding there already in place for that.
Yeah, I love that. The preparation is so important, and I love that you mentioned preparing for postpartum too, because I think that's also something, like positioning a baby that people kind of don't know a lot about. That prepping for your postpartum is just as important as prepping for like your baby shower.
Yeah.
100%. So how do you feel hypnobirthing is different? Because there's so many different types of birth education. How do you feel hypnobirthing is different than those other types of education?
So the most obvious thing is the hypnosis piece. And I mean, yes, there are other programs that utilize hypnosis and so forth. Hypnobirthing was the very first to offer a hypnosis for birthing program. Um, but most birthing preparation classes do not include an actual like hypnosis piece. So we do actual hypnosis, multiple times throughout our course. And some of it is, as coping measures, learning to be ultimately relaxed yet still in control of your body. And then some of it's fear release. The fear release part is the most important part in my opinion. Getting out those fears, those worries, those myths, those misunderstandings, those any of those things that could kind of hold you back on your birthing day, and having a way to effectively release that, and replace that with positive images of what you do want. The biggest thing for me was with my first birth, I didn't realize some of the unsaid expectations that I had about birth and how my birth was supposed to go and things along those lines. And so those were things that I myself remember releasing during the fear release that my hypnobirthing instructor did with me. You know, a lot of the rest of the course does look a lot like other birthing programs. I mean, we talk about comfort measures, and we talk about the physiology, and we talk about nutrition and all of those other things. But that hypnosis piece and the mental, emotional preparation that I feel is so key is what I think really, really sets it apart.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought up fear, which is kind of a strange thing to say, but I'm so glad that you brought up fear, because something I think as doulas we get to talk a lot about is the fear pain cycle, and you get to block that out with your education and empowerment. When we are afraid, we feel pain more intensely, and then when we feel pain more intensely, we become more afraid, and just like cycles on itself. So yeah, hypnobirthing is a fantastic way to enter your labor without having that potential of that fear pain cycle. So for people who are listening to this and might not be familiar with what hypnosis looks like maybe they think it's like cartoony, like like the watch going back and forth. What does hypnosis and hypnobirthing look like?
So, hypnosis looks nothing like what you see on TV. Like, I'm not using like some sort of spiraling or swinging a watch in front of your face or anything like that. We are actually using deep relaxation, and suggestions and so forth to basically bypass the critical factor within your mind to allow access to your subconscious while you are still conscious, if that makes sense. So what that actually looks like is you're just very, very deeply relaxed, and you can literally feel that relaxation like saturating your entire body. So your body might feel like very, very heavy, or even tingly. Sometimes people might describe it even at the opposite, kind of like feeling very light, or like they lose bodily awareness, like melt into your chair. So you really are losing all of that tension within your body and within your mind. And so when we are able to relax our body and our mind, and use those suggestions, or kind of like a guided meditation almost, it allows us to basically take like a zoom lens to different areas of the subconscious. So if we're talking about fear, for example, like during a fear release, we're very specifically working with like one area of the subconscious where we're just looking for, things that might cause fear, anxiety, doubt, just anything that could kind of get in the way of one's goals for their birthing, and kind of bring that up and work with that. And most people will leave a session feeling, sometimes they come out of it a little bit groggy, because it's almost like you had kind of a little bit of a nap, but you're still conscious, you're still awake. But for the most part, they usually feel very unburdened. They feel very excited, and very at ease and very calm. So it's a really cool thing to watch. And no, we don't put in suggestions that you're gonna like jump around, on your
Act like a
hands
chicken.
or or anything like that. We don't do that.
That's not us. Yeah, it sounds really cool. It sounds like very meditative, like very like. I love that you said guided meditation because I mean, as a doula, are you kind of that guide, that meditation then?
Yeah.
Beautiful. I love that. Okay, so as a doula or as a birthing educator, what is a challenge that you're facing right now, and what are you doing to overcome that challenge?
So one of the biggest challenges, honest to goodness, is rebuilding after COVID. I was already kind of struggling a little bit to get my name out there. I struggle with the marketing and all of the, website and SEO and all of that kind of stuff. It's like I want to teach moms and squeeze some hips,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that always been a little bit of a struggle, but I felt like I was finally gaining some traction, and then COVID hit, and we weren't allowed in the hospital anymore. And my classes, which are so amazing in person, now they had to, be virtual. And there was several months where there was nothing. There was no one wanting to sign up for classes. There was no one, wanting support because there was so much uncertainty. But we've been able to come up with ways to work around that. I mean, Zoom, praise the Lord for Zoom.
Yeah.
Because it's been the saving grace for my classes, and heck, how I was able to attend births even, during COVID and things like that. We would labor at home, and then they would go on to the hospital, and we would connect virtually and things like that. So the biggest things that I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to put in some of that work, to fix some of the areas of like my website, do more of these things, to get the word out. Right now, I'm the only hypnobirthing educator who is actively teaching right now. In the fall, Jessica Tatewood is going to be joining us again. So she worked on certification earlier this year, and I'm so excited that she's going to be working with the hypnobirthing family because I feel like we need more. But for the entire state of Oklahoma, it's just us.
Oh, that's crazy.
That's it for our entire state.
Yeah.
And for a while, it was just me. And then previous to that, there was a couple of other educators. One who has since gone on to be a midwife, and she's amazing. And then one who's just not teaching at this point anymore. And so, I mean, the most we've ever had at one time is 3. And they were all in the metro.
That's crazy. I remember when our very first Nurture Oklahoma stream, I had Stephanie Nicole on, and Stephanie brought up this fantastic point that I don't think gets talked about very often, and it's that all of us as birth workers, it doesn't quite make sense to be competitive. Because as a brand new doula, I witnessed some like competitive, not so like empowering interactions between doulas in Kansas, and I was like hyper aware, like, oh my god, I will not get involved in a group of doulas. And I joked they're like a coven, and it's like a whole thing, and I was terrified. And then I ended up working and becoming super close to the community here. Which is why I'm here doing this right now, obviously, because community is such a major part of being a birth worker.
It really is.
All that to say, Stephanie Nicole brought up this point that was like, there are so many people giving birth in our city. It is not possible for all of us combined, let alone like one of us, to take them all on.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, if we all work together to help lift each other, then not only will more families be aware of the support that they could have, but more families would be aware. Like so many people,
I 100% agree with that. And when I was in Florida, Florida's a big hot spot for hypnobirthing training and things like that. Um, like the president of Hypnobirthing lives in Florida.
Oh wow, okay.
Marie Mongan, the founder of Hypnobirthing, at the end of her life is in Florida. I actually trained with Marie Mongan prior to
That's cool.
So that's pretty amazing too. And I mean, so we had a lot of doulas, and we had a lot of people doing hypnobirthing, and but what I noticed was the more that we had, the more awareness there was. There was no need to compete.
Yeah.
I would much rather have that relationship of being a colleague and, hey, your schedule's full, you can pass to me. When my schedule's full, I'm going to pass to you.
Yeah.
And, but it's all about getting awareness out, because when more people use doulas, more people are asking about doulas, more people are sharing information. Same thing with birth classes, whether it's hypnobirthing or Bradley method or birth boot camp or hypnobabies, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. The more people are using it, the more that they are sharing their experiences, the more families are looking for that. And we need more people seeking that.
Yeah.
The absolute only way to do that is we need more birth workers.
There's so much more out there than hospital birth classes. Not to knock on hospital birth classes. Some people enjoy. I'm kind of knocking on hospital birth classes. I'm just gonna knock on hospital birth classes. Honestly, I took hospital birth classes as a first-time mom when I was 21 years old, and I was like, what is and now that I'm at, like, I can compare and contrast, like, the things that I saw at that point in my life doing a hospital class compared to now, where I've been to, breastfeeding courses out of hospital. I've been to birth boot camp. I've done like hypnobirthing instruction that you taught us out in the doula groups, and that's another really cool part about our community, is not only, like you mentioned, that if we're full, our schedule's full, that we can, like, hey, my schedule's full, I have this awesome person who I would love to take on, but I just don't have the capacity to. Can I pass them to you? And also, personality is a pretty huge deal, and it would be asking a lot of one person to be like the perfect doula for every single personality type and life experience and like all these different things. So it's really nice that if there's somebody who I interview with and I'm like, this person is really wonderful, but I think that, they would be fantastic with Jen. I think that something about Jen Miller would really serve this particular family better than maybe how I could serve. And I know that might sound weird for other people, but I think as important as it is to serve families, I think it's important to know what you can and can't give a family. And if there's someone else who can do that better, like, hey, and it's really cool to match them up. Be like, hey, look at this, and then to see that they have this fantastic experience. And then in Rejection Proof, there's a really cool book, Rejection Proof, that they said that if you ever tell someone no, if you ever reject somebody, having another option available, it makes you like more successful. Like they won't see you as like hurtful or unhelpful because you were like, hey, I can't take you on, but let me tell you about the other doula. Yes, yeah. And you can't do that if you're not connected to your community, and you can't be knowledgeable about all the different courses unless you are talking to the different educators. So that's my soapbox on community. Now,
I support you 100%. I love that you went on that.
Yeah. You mentioned SEO, and I've seen you mention that before. I think that is something that you are 100% not alone in. I think that anyone listening or watching us right now who is a birth worker can probably totally empathize with the fact that marketing is hard, especially when
Oh my
you
God.
are self-employed. And I don't feel, from what I know as of now, that very many doula trainings go very far into marketing. And if they do, it's probably out of date by the time you get clients.
My the business portion of my training was not even something we went over necessarily during my training. Like it was like, oh, there's a section on it in the manual. And like that was the extent. And there was follow up, and there was, this is how you build a website, or this is what you need to, there was none of that. I mean, granted, yes, this was almost a decade ago and things were a little bit different, but it was like, I don't even know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I relied very heavily on Facebook and moms groups, and even with teaching full time and things like that, I was still averaging about one family a month, which, honest to goodness, was about all I could do anyway.
Yeah.
Between momming and teaching and all of that kind of stuff. So it brought me what I needed, but the world has changed.
Yeah.
And it's not what it was a decade ago, and I'm just trying to keep up.
Yeah. It's a whole thing for anyone and for you as well. Like I caught up with Udemy. Udemy is an online course that I took, a social media marketing course, and it kind of filled in blanks. But there's things that change so frequently that you kind of have to like hop in and just mess with stuff. So when I'm not a doula, I am a social media strategist and a social media marketer. So I get to kind of like mess with all these different things on my time that I'm not working as a doula. And my husband is an SEO strategist for a company.
Mhm.
So we get to like.
I knew this about you guys too.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, I get to, when someone's like, this is such a bizarre thing. When someone's like, I have a lot of activity on my website. I'm like, I'm going to go check out your website. I've looked at everybody's websites and I'm like, ooh, Jen, actually, yours is really beautiful, by the way. Like, I really liked your website. We're getting so off topic here. This is like not. But fantastic work on your website. Yeah, no, fantastic work. I just don't think it gets talked about very often, like the media marketing, online marketing, social media marketing. And as a social media marketer, if you're listening, just that I can like put this out there because it's like my unpopular opinion. Facebook is a business, and it's their business to have you market your business on their business. So of course you're being shadow banned, because if you're not paying, you're not playing. So that's just where I'm at here now. And it's not helpful always if you don't have the ability to invest into marketing like on social media. But you don't necessarily need social media. It's their job to make you feel like you need them. So anyways, I don't want to take over your highlight, like your interview stream with social media. I just had to like hop up on that too. Be like,
that's totally fine.
Don't let them make you feel like you need them, because you don't always need them. Anyways. I had to go a little crazy. I'm sorry. Let's see. Okay, so you've mentioned before that you've had long births as well as short births, and you've been doing this for a long time. You've managed multiple occupations and kiddos, and that's a whole thing. Just having one job and kids is already a lot. To put doula work and birth education in that is a lot. So my question is, how do you prevent and survive from burnout? I think that's such an important topic that we need to discuss more often.
So number one is setting boundaries and knowing your limits. And that's not something I've always been good at. And in fact, was a huge contributor to me burning out of public education. Because unfortunately, in public education, you don't really get the choice in setting boundaries and adhering to your limits, because you're working for somebody else. You're working within another system. And that caused a significant amount of wear on myself and on my family. And when I fell in love with birth work, I knew that I needed to leave public education. because I couldn't, I have the ability to do both. So I'm very protective of my time. Like very
you have
protective
to
of my
be.
time.
Yeah.
So like when I'm scheduling classes, even though I might still have 2 or 3 nights open a week that I could potentially schedule someone, I will only allow for a certain number of nights me to be occupied. Whether that's with classes or whether that's with, consults or, different things along those lines. And I really try very hard to stick within that. And there are times where, you can't, and you accept that. I know my limits. Like I know one of the main reasons I actually don't do postpartum work right now is because I need sleep.
Girl, I feel that so hard.
I'm beautiful and bubbly until I don't get sleep. So I've had to turn down many opportunities for postpartum work just because they were overnight, and I was like, I can do like 1 night a week, but I don't know how beneficial that's going to be to you.
Yeah.
Where with birth doula, it's like, okay, if I'm only taking on 1, 2, 3, 4 clients a month, I'm sacrificing in theory 1 night a week, or a couple of nights over the course of a month. So that's not as big of a deal. So I really try hard to work within my limits. I know where my strengths are. I know where my weaknesses are. I've been burnt out before, not in doula work, not in birth work, but in other areas. So I know what that feels like, and I don't ever want to feel that way again. And also having someone to talk to, not just people in the community, but also like counseling, I feel is really, really important.
Yeah.
Having a third party, having someone who is not involved in your mess, who is not involved in your circle per se, whether they are professional counseling or not. I find it to be extremely, extremely helpful, just mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and maintaining that balance. I mean, balance, it needs to be in all things. And if I'm out of balance, I'm not able to serve the families that I'm serving as well. I'm not able to serve my community. I'm not even able to serve my own family if I'm out of balance. So those are kind of the biggest things for me.
Yeah. No, that's a fantastic answer. I just read an article written by another doula who left doula work, not in our own community, because they couldn't do it anymore. Like you are emotionally and physically and in all ways serving a human being for a long time in a very vulnerable state, and you're giving them their all, your all, to support them in this like momentous part of their life, and then you go home and you have children and laundry and dishes and dinner and groceries and bills, and you have to. I personally have a baby who, if I'm gone, she's like, I need a nurse all night, all night. Don't even think about putting that away.
Those days.
I'm nursing all night.
I remember pumping in hospitals and coming home and having a baby glued to me.
Yes. Yes, that's as my doula work has like taken off, and so with COVID, I echo you. Just to backtrack a little bit, during COVID, before that things really started to pick up, and I was like, wow, I have the most clients I've ever had ever, and this third year is gonna be great. And then COVID hit, and I was like, oh no, like how is the thing? And I had a baby in March 2020, so I wasn't really practicing like I would have wanted to anyway, because of I needed to be there for my baby. And I think I had like 1 or 2 clients that year because I was postpartum. And how and I did
served a total of 5 in 2020.
Yeah, I guess yeah, it would have been like maybe 2 or 3 if I count like the very beginning of the year before everything hit, and then hospitals locked down, and that was, and then I did virtual, and virtual just doesn't feel the same, when you you see a family and you're there at their house when they're laboring, and then you're like, okay, and you get them all packed up in their car and you send them off, and then they call you later on. That is the strangest feeling, because you're like,
this is completely bizarre.
Yeah, and then they like text you, hey, here's baby, after everything's said and done, they have pictures of baby, and you're like, oh my god, I hope you're happy with my support. I'm very much like, I just hope that you're happy with the investment. I hope you feel that I was a good investment. And everyone's always like, oh my god. What are you talking about? But yeah, so this year things went fast, and like I got done like lots of clients, and in the last like week or so I've been at like 80 hours of birth, and I come home and I've been breast pumping the entire time at hospitals, and then come home, my baby's like the first thing she does is sign nurse, and like we're nursing, and I'm like trying to sleep.
Yeah.
And I read that article and I was like, wow, even more so now than ever is it important to me that we talk about burnout. I don't think that I'm going to burn out, but I can see like seeing that article recently and being like, oh man, I could see if you were doing this continuously and not understanding your boundaries and not having a support team or backups or people at home who can help you or counseling, I could see how that could just be. And I would hate for someone to step away from this work that they love so much because it just became unmanageable, if that makes sense.
Well, and I love that you brought up support too, because there have been seasons over the past decade where I just haven't had like the at-home support, especially like when we first moved. Like, I knew exactly one family in Oklahoma, and I didn't have friends, I didn't have a network, and things like that. My kids were younger, and so I definitely had to lighten my load, and so I didn't. I think my first year in Oklahoma, I may have attended like a birth, because I had to build things up, and there have been times where this person's moved away or this dynamic has changed, that I've just kind of had to pull back on those types of things, because I feel like doulas have really big hearts, and we want to do all the things for all the people and love all the mamas and all of that. And it's really hard for us not to. It's so hard. But it's really, really difficult to do this work without an adequate support system. And that's probably one thing I would say to new doulas, just in general, is build your support. Because you will, without support, without knowing your boundaries, without all of that, like it's really easy to crash out.
Yes. And that's perfect, because I was going to ask you before, the stream is over tonight. What are some things, like little bits of advice that you would give to a doula? Like, what are things that you wish you had known prior to starting that you could tell a new doula entering our field?
That's a hard one. I really, really wish that I knew that I had known more about business, and that there had been more of an emphasis on that side. Like, I left my training feeling very adequately prepared to support families through their labor, through their birth, into that early postpartum time. Like, I felt like I had the skills, I could do it. But there was a really huge gap between having that information and gaining the clientele to actually do it. So whether you're doing courses on something like Udemy, like you had mentioned, or other options that may be open to you, and I don't think that they need to be specific to doula work, just general business stuff.
Just business.
And that was something I didn't know, and I feel like I've struggled a lot over the years because of that. Also, like, get to know people, because yes, you're going to have support at home. Yes, you're going to have support from friends, family, church, whatever. But you also need that support within your community. So when you do hit hard times, if I don't have that support, then I don't know that if I can't take on this person, that I can send them to Jenni. send them to Brittany, or I can send them, to Courtney or whoever else. So get to know people, and get to know what they're passionate about. Because I love hypnobirthing. I think it is amazing. But hypnobirthing's not for everyone, And someone might be really, really turned off by the hypno in hypnobirthing. And
like, I'm not flopping like a chicken.
And as you said before, like, I need to know where I can, send them and things like that. Understand, as you brought up earlier, that this is not a competition.
Mm-hmm.
This is, this is collaboration. This is, definitely working together. And we are so much more powerful when we come together, when we work together, when we make those relationships. And I mean, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's really hard, or, you don't have the time or space in your schedule or things like that. But finding those times when you can is super important. And don't sacrifice your family on the altar of birth work, which is a really, really difficult thing to do. But that, again, is where that support comes in. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, have fun.
Yeah.
This should be. If it's not fun, you are not in the right place.
Yeah.
As soon as it stops being fun, I need to go away. Because I think that it should be fun.
Yeah, I tell my husband that and my other friends, like, in the different communities that we're part of, and I'm like, this is supposed to be for fun. Everyone's being too serious right now, and we do this because we love it, and because it's fun, and because we're empowering people, and because we believe in it. We believe it with all of our hearts. We believe in it, and that's where it's at. And I'm so glad you brought up the community again, too, because I think that an important thing that I would love to see more of in the birth community is the idea of having a mentor and a mentee. In order to learn and to grow, it's important to have a mentor and a mentee, because both of those dynamics are going to teach you something. And I don't see that very much. I mean, it's not that I don't see it in the community. I just think that we would benefit more from that. Maybe it's dynamic. We have to figure out what that looks like. There's plenty of baby doulas out there. Maybe people have imposter syndrome like I might have. They're like, I don't need a mentee, or I'm not good enough for a mentor. Oh my goodness. Everyone needs a mentor. So,
I would love a mentor. And I've been doing this for a decade, but I love investing in the newbies as well. I recently worked with a brand new baby doula. She needed to take a class for her certification.
yeah.
So I was able to help her get into my hypnobirthing class, and we were able to have some really great conversations and things like that. And I really hope that we can nurture that relationship. The hardship, of course, mentoring and things like that, is that birth is so private and so sacred too.
Yeah.
So it's hard to be like, can so-and-so come and watch your birth?
I'll give you 2 doulas for the price of 1.
Right. You have to reframe it that way for sure. Absolutely.
I guess a doula and a half, because they're new.
That idea within birth work did not even exist a decade ago. And so I love that I'm seeing it now. And I hate when someone reaches out and is like, I'd love to shadow you for a birth. And I'm like, I don't have another birth on my calendar for 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm in the window right now. But there have been times where it's like, I would love to help you, but legit, I don't have anything right now. Otherwise, I would. But I'm happy to, especially doulas who need to take a class for their certification. If your certifying organization will allow for hypnobirthing, I am happy to have you sit in my class. I have a whole different contract for that. Yes, there is a little bit of an investment, but I do see it as an investment, and I'm happy to break things down for you and to, offer support and build that relationship as well. So I love when doulas sit in and things like that. And if you're working with a client who is taking hypnobirthing and you are their doula, you are absolutely allowed to come sit in the class as well.
Yeah. Go to the class.
So, right, exactly. Like, especially right now, all of my group classes for the rest of the year are still on Zoom. So I'm not meeting in person with groups right now. I am doing some one-on-ones in person. I'm just trying to keep things safe for COVID. And so I can absolutely send you the link to our Zoom so you can pop in when you're able to, because I want you to know what your families are learning, what they're hearing, what they're working with, so that you are in a position to be better prepared to serve them, especially since there isn't a lot of people doing hypnobirthing right now. So I want people to know.
Yeah, it's so important for the supporting person to know the knowledge, information, and empowerment tools that their family has, to do the thing. If you're like, oh hey, remember that thing that was mentioned in class? Like, let's, you get to see and have those ideas. And if you're familiar with those classes, which is another benefit of getting to know your community, go sit in on a class, go take a class, pay to take the class. Pay your local educators, like, support each other, because it means a lot. But yeah, okay, so we have a few. I wanted to go over a little bit since we were late, but what would you like to see more of in our community?
I just want to continue to see more collaboration. I want to see more of those mentor-mentee relationships. I want to see events happening where people can meet doulas or learn about education and things along those lines, where it's not a competition. And I don't necessarily know that expos and things like that are the way to go. I know I personally haven't had a great return. I'm going to keep showing up because that's where the birthing families are, and things along those lines. And I'm still going to engage in those opportunities because I think they're important for the community as well. But I'd like to see more of those like intimate type settings, whether it's like, a speed doula night, or, meet birth educators. Like my actual a dream that I have would be for like a childbirth education center. Like, I'd like to have like a centralized location where childbirth educators can rent space, and one night will be Bradley method, and one night will be hypnobirthing, and one night will be birth camp, one night will be this particular group. And sure, let's throw in some prenatal yoga, and let's have a night where we have a doula meet and greet. Like, I would love to create something like that. I don't know how to do that, but I would love to.
I love that. I might have to get my brain, like, oh yeah, you could do like breastfeeding and baby wearing and all. I mean, we kind of used to have that at the Edmund Birth Center. Be able to do those classes, but we kind of, I know, like, I think I believe that's how I met you, was at the Edmund Birth Center.
I'm so excited for new birth centers popping up and things like that, but oh, my heart is still sore.
Yeah, no, that's, it's really interesting. I do want to touch on that before we say goodnight for tonight, because I moved to Oklahoma, and Megan Wynn came to Barnes & Noble. I just took a part-time job when I got here at Barnes & Noble, and she happened to come and buy a bunch of birth books, and I was like, oh hey, and make conversation at the checkout, and she gave me her card. And I emailed, and I was like, how do I get involved? How can I volunteer? Do you need help? Where can I be? And I volunteered for the Edmund Birth Center opening, and that was the beginning of my journey, honestly. That's how I'm here.
I said you and Rashini.
Yes. And that's how we've been friends ever since. We got to volunteer together, so it was the beginning of like a really incredible friendship, and it was the beginning of my birth journey in Oklahoma. I met everybody there. It's still cool to think back and to think about and to look on. And I do have quite the sore spot in my heart for Edmund Birth Center, and like you said, it's really exciting to see other centers opening, but that place was really cool and really magical, and it was like the beginning for me. So but I hope that those other centers will be the beginnings for other people, and like centers like the one you just spoke about. If you were able to work that into existence, like that could be the beginning for other people, and that community work is the people I've served wouldn't necessarily, I wouldn't have been able to serve them maybe the same way. Butterfly effects, we don't know. We don't know. So those things have a lot of power. But before we sign off, I want to thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on and talk with me about what you're passionate about. Can you let everybody know how they can get in touch with you and continue to follow your birthwork journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously I have a Facebook page, Miller Birth Services. I'm also on Instagram. I swear
The IG.
today. See, I'm almost 40, so I mean I use the whole word. So you can follow me on Instagram as well. Again, Miller Birth Services, and then my website, www.millerbirthservices.com. And then I also go as hypnobirthingok.com too. And I'm hoping in the future to build that up to be an umbrella for lots of Oklahoma hypnobirthing instructors. That's like a long-term goal.
Oh, I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah. And then, I'm on social media. Feel free to reach out. I love talking to new people. Feel free to email me, doula.jen.miller@gmail. Super easy. I actually do respond to my emails incessantly. So that's a boundary I'm not very good at. But
that's good. Sometimes people don't get their emails very often. So Awesome. Well, thank you for everyone who was watching and for anyone who listens or watches in the future. And next week I will have Anna Rhodes of Embrace Doula Services, I believe.
Embrace.
Yeah. First Embrace. I'm like, well, I'll try to. Now this has been a really great way to know everybody's business names and their websites. So yeah, First Embrace Doula Services, Anna Rhodes. I'm super excited. Thankful that she's able to back me up recently. Very short notice, thankfully.
So she's an amazing person. So yeah.
Anna, if you're watching, I appreciate you. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and good night, everybody. It's been wonderful.
Bye, guys.